Welcome to tonight's program. On behalf of our town hall, with these principles of success, many individuals have actually taken them and applied them in their life and have developed their thoughts. You control your life. In addition to that, how to take your desire, the desire within yourself, the starting point of achievement, working within the aspects that you have, your brain, your subconscious mind, and your imagination, to actually develop goals, plans, and objectives, and work within a mastermind group to gain the specialized knowledge that you need to go out in the world and be successful. In addition to this, in working with your thoughts, we can actually use autosuggestion to help control your thoughts, which helps control your decision-making ability and your actual willpower. Along with that, we'll be taking a look at the sixth sense, how to actually develop your psychic abilities, develop the intuitive nature that you have within inside yourself. Tonight's meeting itself is actually going to be working on developing your thoughts. And how I'd like to start out with that is reading a short little poem by Rainer. And it goes, "As you think, you travel, and as you love, you attract. You are today where your thoughts have brought you. You will be tomorrow where your thoughts take you. You cannot escape the result of your thoughts, but you can endure and learn, can accomplish and be glad. You will realize the vision of your heart, be it base or beautiful, or a mixture of both. For you will always gravitate toward that which you secretly think and believe. Into your thoughts you will receive that which you earn, no more, no less. Whatever your present environment may be, you will fall, remain, or rise with your thoughts, your vision, your ideal. You will become as small as your controlling desire, as great as your dominant aspiration." Well, the idea of tonight's meeting is to actually work with you to realize that your thoughts really do create your world. As I mentioned in the last program, Zoroaster 4,000 years ago said, "Good thoughts, good words, good deeds." In other words, the thoughts that you think create the words that you speak, which create your deeds or your actions out in the world. So, can we control our thoughts? What do you think? It's amazing to me that through all of the education that we go through, that we can't and haven't worked with controlling your thoughts. When we come back, we'll go through exactly how we can go ahead and do this. Get into that, let's talk about what we did last week. As you remember, we talked about a practical exercise on how to be a better conversationalist. If you were here with us last week, we looked at three aspects of being a better conversationalist. The first fundamental was to be a good listener. That if you're talking with someone, trying to communicate with them, and you're reading the newspaper or you're looking through the mail, that's not effective communications. And being a good conversationalist, you need to be a good listener, to look at that person, to give them visual approval, nodding of the heads, and then also giving verbal approval. In many cases, just a couple grunts would do, right? The second fundamental, it was to ask questions. It wasn't just asking questions, though. It was asking the right kinds of questions. We did a little memory exercise talking about how your mind thinks in pictures. For instance, if I said the word car, you wouldn't see the black letter C-A-R. You would actually see a physical car. Or if I said the word house, you would actually see the physical house. In asking the right kinds of questions, what we did was we went through a stack of silly, goofy objects to help remember what kinds of questions we can ask. That stack again was, the first object was a walnut nameplate. On top of that was a red brick. Were you watching last week? You should have been. Red brick house. The next object coming out of the chimney of the house was a white work glove. In the palm of the work glove was a gray Boeing 747. Instead of propellers on the airplane, we had Wilson wooden tennis rackets. Screwed into the middle of the tennis rackets was a pink 13.5 watt light bulb. Now, who cares about those silly, goofy objects? What difference does it make? Well, when you talk about asking the right kinds of questions, each of those objects represent the question that we can ask. For instance, the walnut nameplate would stand for what? What is your name? The red brick house would stand for where do you live? The white work glove would stand for where do you work? The airplane would stand for do you get a chance to travel? The propellers would stand for do you have any hobbies? And the red 13.5 watt light bulb would stand for what are your ideas in regards to something. Then we went into the third fundamental. I gave you a couple examples. One example was if we just went through those questions, we met someone and said, oh, what's your name? Where do you live? Where do you work? Do you get a chance to travel? Do you have any hobbies? And do you have any ideas? That wouldn't be a very good conversationalist either. What we talked about would be the third fundamental, which is using the 6 honest serving men. Kipling once wrote, there are 6 honest serving men, they taught me all I know. Their names are who, what, when, where, why, and how. What we talked about doing is in each of those aspects of the questions, actually asking 1 or 2 of the 6 honest serving men. And there we can find out more about the individuals we're talking with, so they know that we're genuinely interested in them and they have a better feeling for us. Plus, it's a great way to meet people and get to know them. Okay? In addition to that, last week we talked about the idea of controlling your thoughts, and I gave you a couple exercises. One was to actually watch your thoughts during the day, and when a thought came up that wasn't as positive as you want it to be, or that you didn't want to have come back to you, that you actually said cancel, cancel, or erase. The whole object in that is that when you think a thought, that goes out into the universe and then comes back to you. Okay? In many cases, the example I gave was that of if you were to picture a fishbowl that was filled 3/4 filled with water, and you took a pebble and you dropped it into the middle of the water, what would happen when it hit the water? It would create a ripple. Well, that ripple would hit the sides and then come right back into the middle. This is the same effect as saying a thought, thinking a thought, saying those words in real life situation. In other words, it's like the law of karma. As you sow, so shall you reap. Okay? So we talked about that, and the other example that I gave you and other exercise I gave you was to watch your thoughts when you go to sleep and when you wake up. Well, what happened? Well, if you really did that, you saw that you were thinking about things that happened during your day, maybe things you needed to do the next day, or if it was in the morning, the things you have to do. Now, the question is, when you looked at those thoughts, what was the attitude that you took? Were you happy? Were you sad? Were you angry? The big question is not exactly what were they, even though you need to look at that. But if it wasn't what you want, if you were angry, how do you change that? Okay? Do you want to change it? If you realize that the thoughts that you think really create your life, and if you take hold of this idea and actually work with it, you'll find some tremendous things. 2 things happen. One is then you look back at your life and you realize that everything that happened to you, whether it good or whether it bad, you created. That's the worst part about it. Because haven't we normally blamed other people for the things that have happened in our life? Now, if we can do that and actually take that responsibility, what happens is that then we say, okay, that's what's happened in the past. Okay? I'm going to recreate my life. What do I want to have happen in my life? In taking control of our thoughts and thinking the thoughts that we want to have happen in our life, and using some of the other aspects that we're talking about, some of the 13 other principles in this philosophy of life that Andrew Carnegie actually lived, that the people that around him lived and benefited from. If we can do that, what is that going to mean to us? If we can become 10 or 20 or 30% more effective in these areas of our life, if we gain one idea from watching this series, what will that mean to our life? Well, only time will tell. And what I'll guarantee you one thing, that if you actually take on this philosophy and actually practice it in your life, then whether it be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 20 weeks from now, as you actually work this philosophy, you'll be writing us a letter telling us how it benefited you. Okay? Is that a deal? Well, tonight, what we're going to do is actually look closely in how to control our thoughts. How to control it through concentration exercises, how to control it through autosuggestion, and what we can do with breath that affects our brain, that affects all of our psychic abilities within inside of ourselves. So, join us back in a minute. In the meantime, what I'd like you to do is get a pen and piece of paper, and when we come back, there'll be some aspects that I'd like you to be writing down. Okay? See you in a minute. So, in talking about controlling our thoughts, what do we have to look at? Well, it really comes down to concentration. The definition of concentration is the direction of attention on a single object. Scientists have shown us that we think hundreds of thoughts per second. Now, when we're working during the day and you're doing your normal day-to-day activity, we get all these thoughts coming up one after another after another. In many cases, what do we do with them? Well, they start coming out. We start talking and jabbering back and forth. Or we're talking with inside our own mind, whether people are talking to us or not. So to get control of that really comes down to the power of focus, which is what concentration is all about. It's like, for instance, if we were to take a river. If that river was over a 2-mile area, just flowing naturally, and we took that river, what kind of power does it have? Does it have the power to move rocks? No, it's just sitting there. But if we took that and actually moved it into a 1/4-mile stretch of land, it would move that land right off. So the power of focus is the power to control our thoughts, the power of attention. What we need to do is to be able to slow our mind to be able to hold one thought. In doing this, we're actually creating the atonement. Many great philosophers talked about the atonement. What does that mean? If you break down atonement, we're looking at at-one-ment. It's actually getting the consciousness of it and never deviating. In looking at that, we need to look at the brain and the subconscious mind and how it works. It's been said by scientists that the brain has and goes through 4 different rates of vibration. We talk about being at the beta level, the alpha level, theta level, and delta level. What happens is that all of us run through these levels many times per minute. When we go to sleep, we still run through these levels. What happens is that the beta level, they say, is our consciousness, where we are right now. You're thinking of me, you're watching me on TV, I'm looking at the cameras, thinking of you, thinking of how I can relate all of this to you. We're thinking on the conscious level. As we look at going down into the alpha and theta level, what happens is that when you were going to sleep and watching your thoughts as you were sleeping, that's going down into the alpha level. Scientists, the research that they've done into the dream state and everything like that, show it's the alpha and theta levels that's where our healing comes in. That's where our subconscious mind is. And the delta levels are the levels that they don't really even know about. There's many yogis that have gone into these levels and can stay in those levels for extended periods of time. But the scientists can't show what that means. But the yogis come out with great stories and great experiences of what they've experienced in those levels. What we're going to be talking about and actually dealing with is how to get into this alpha and theta level consciously, working within our own selves, consciously, being able to use creative visualization, creative relaxation exercises, breathing exercises to understand ourselves, to understand our thoughts, to be able to control our thoughts and actually move our thoughts in the way that we want them to. Because if we can do this and then use the practical exercises of goal setting, of planning, of organization, of delegation, of working with the mastermind, of communications, then we're able to control and direct our life. So when we come back, we're going to work on specific techniques of concentration, and I'm going to be talking more about how to use your breath in helping control your thoughts so we can get what we want done. And what is that? Again, if we're able to become 10 or 20 or 30% more effective in these areas, what is it going to mean to you personally? What is it going to mean to your family? Is it going to help you? Well, all of the research that's been done, all of the successful individuals that have been interviewed as far as using these 13 principles have actually found them to be successful in their lives. And this is what we want to have happen for you. So we'll be back, and I'll talk more about it then. Work with our thoughts to create what we want in our life. The first aspect of it is our posture. Many cases in meditation, you see a yogi sitting in meditation with his arms at his sides, with his legs crossed, with his spine straight. For us Westerners, we can either sit in a chair or be lying on our back. The whole premise about that is to keep your spine straight. The reason being is that it's said that in our body there are 7 different chakras. Chakras are actual energy points within our body. It's mainly where all of the nerve centers come in the body in different aspects of it. There's a root chakra, the navel chakra, the solar plexus, the heart chakra, the communication chakra, or a throat chakra, in the third eye, and at the crown of the head. Okay? So the whole idea is to keep your body aligned so these energy levels can rise and flow throughout your body. In many cases, it's said that if someone is ill or is sick, it's because part of their alignment is off. That's where you see a lot of people with the acupuncture or the chiropractors. They move the body back in alignment so the energy can flow. Another aspect that we need to look at is your breath. Well, how do you breathe? Is your breath shallow? In other words, is it all right in your chest? Are you going? If your chest moves while you breathe, you're breathing improperly. If you look at a baby when they're sleeping, you see that the baby is breathing into its stomach. So we as adults, because we've lost that natural impulse, we need to work on this. Again, if we're laying down or sitting, we need to be able to, this is a kind of a neat exercise. If you either stand up or where you're sitting right now, if you put your hands together like this, with the tips of your fingers together, when you breathe out, your fingertips should move away. And when you let go of that breath, or breathe out, then your fingertips should come together. So again, when you breathe in, your fingertips are apart. When you breathe out, it's together. Now, that's deep breathing. That's actually moving your stomach to create a vacuum. Now, what happens with that, scientifically, you create 60% more oxygen within your body by breathing in that way. Okay? Is that important? Well, if you're getting more oxygen into your blood flow, you're getting more oxygen into your brain, you're getting more oxygen throughout your body. Isn't that beneficial? It sure is. So we have to look at that and be conscious of that. In addition to breathing deeply, the other aspect of it is to breathe rhythmically. What's meant by that? Well, for each individual, their heartbeat is different. So if you were to measure your heartbeat and actually take a beat of, say, 10 beats and actually count it out, what you need to do is actually breathe in for as many beats as you can. Let's say it's 6 to 10. Hold your breath for half of that amount of time, and then breathe out for that same amount of time. Hold your breath again for half the time, and then breathe in. Well, what does this do? Well, what happens is that within your blood system and in your oxygens, when you're breathing into your lungs, when you're oxygenizing your body, what happens is that your lungs are actually taking the air from the oxygen molecule and putting it into your body. Okay? It's actually transferring the life energy from the air itself. So when you hold your breath in between, what happens is that allows more of the dead air, or the wasted air, the carbon dioxide, to actually release into that air to be expelled. Okay? So again, the main premise, all of that doesn't matter except to do it. So the main premise in rhythmic breathing is to breathe in a certain number of counts, hold it for half that number of counts, and then breathe out the same number of counts. Okay? We'll be trying this in just a little bit. But you need to get the hang of it to be able to use it, again, to oxygenize your body and to gain better control over your thoughts and to gain more control over your life. It's interesting to note that, for instance, if you ever get in a situation where you're scared, or where you're going to do some public speaking, or you're in front of the camera, like I am right now, one of the things that speakers do to actually control their thoughts, to actually relax, is to deep breathe. And they'll actually, if you're ever in a situation where you're fearing something, you're ever in a life-threatening situation where you need to think clearly, if you do that, you'll gain control over your thoughts again. Okay? Now, the next aspect about it, about concentration, is that when I mentioned when you go to sleep at night. Now, there's certain times that you can actually practice these exercises. If you can practice for 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, that's going to do wonders for you. If you can do this, for instance, like starting at night, like even tonight, when you go to sleep, and just think about what I've been talking about, what you'll find is that as you do these things, all of it will come together for you. One of the aspects of focus is to actually focus between your eyebrows. If you were to take your finger, your index finger, and put it right between your eyebrows, you'll see a conjuncture. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. You see the conjuncture of bones right there. At that point, focus your eyes with your eyes open, and then close your eyes. So what happens is that when you focus your attention there, attention to that point is like food. And in actuality, what happens, again, scientifically, is that as you focus your eyes to this point, that actually affects your pineal gland in the middle of your brain. Scientists don't know exactly what this pineal gland is for, but it's been said in the yogic scriptures that this is where all of your spiritual and psychic energy is. So by focusing your eyes here, you're actually activating that gland. The other aspect of it is that when you're focusing there, if you can do it right now, go ahead and close your eyes and focus up there. What happens is that you'll see light. And all that you need to do is to keep focusing on the middle of it and bring your focus in, bring your focus in. Okay? The next aspect that we'll go through is actually focusing on an object. For instance, if you were to take a point in your room, if you're going to actually do this on a special time every day, you can meditate on a rose, or meditate on a candle, or meditate on a crystal. And what you do is you just take that object, you have it placed someplace about 6 feet away from you, and you just gaze at it. And you bring your focus to it, and then you'll catch yourself thinking about other thoughts. Well, just gently bring your mind back to gazing upon the object. And then you'll realize, oh, I'm thinking about what I need to do at work. Well, then just say, that's okay, bring it back to the object. And what you'll find happening is that over time, many cases from the very beginning, as you continue to focus and focus and focus, you're actually training your mind to do what you want it to do. And that's to focus on what you will it to focus on. Not to be this haphazard monkey that's jumping around in the cage and throwing up the TV and what's going on at work and all of these different types of things, but to bring it under control. Because once you control your thoughts, again, you can control your life. Okay? Now, in doing all of that, again, what you're doing is, as you realize that you're thinking of something else other than that object, you just gently bring your focus back to it. It's just, for instance, when you go out now in talking about thoughts and talking about watching what you're thinking and watching what you're saying, you'll hear people say things that they probably don't want to have happen in their life. And all that you need to do is actually say to them, cancel, cancel. And then replace that thought that they said, or your thought that you said, or your thought that you thought, actually replace that with a positive message. And they might look at you and you go, well, what are you saying cancel, cancel for? And say, well, erase, erase. And see what they do with that. Well, again, what you want to do is you want them to be conscious that they create their thoughts. Or, I'm sorry, that they create their world through their thoughts and through their actions. Okay? So that's actually an interesting practice for you, because the more you do that and the more you watch other people's words, you'll actually see their thoughts behind their words and you see how their world is as a result of it. Okay? Now what we'll do is, actually what I'd like you to do is we're going to take a break for just a second. In the meantime, before we come back, I'd like you to just get into a relaxing mode, relaxing position, and we'll actually do some practice in all of this. Okay, so here we are. The interesting thing about doing this type of exercise is for those of you who are professionals, you'll find that this is also a great way to relax. In many cases, there's a lot of people that have hypertension, anxieties, all different types of ailments that in going through this type of breathing exercises and concentration exercises, you can alleviate a lot of that. Okay? So what I'd like you to do is just get comfortable. Just sit back on the couch, sit back in your chair. If you have a low back chair like a lazy boy, instead of leaning all the way back, it's better again to keep your posture. Okay? If you can imagine with your posture, is if you had a string running from your tailbone all the way up your spinal column through your head, someone was pulling that string, that's how your posture should be. So your spinal column is straight. So let's go ahead and start by just relaxing, taking a couple deep breaths. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. If you can breathe in through your nose, go ahead and do that. Actually, at the at the end of this program, what I'll be doing is talking about an exercise for you to do at home where you're actually breathing in and out through your nose. That's going to help stimulate your brain activities and stimulate your psychic centers. So again, in controlling our thoughts, controlling our body, controlling our breath, let's breathe in. Deep breath, remember, into the stomach and out. Breathe in. Hold it for half the time. Breathe out. Follow your own rhythm. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now as you're doing that rhythmic breathing, keep breathing in and out. Go ahead and tense your muscles. Tense the muscles in your hand, in your right hand. Tense it, tense it, tense it, let go. Tense your muscles in your right forearm. Tense it, let go. Tense the muscles in your upper arm. Tense it, let go. Tense the muscles in your left hand. Tense it, let go. Tense your muscles in your forearm. Let go. Tense your muscles in your upper left arm and let go. Tense the muscles in your both feet together. Let go. Now keep breathing. Tense the muscles in your calf. Let go. Tense the muscles in your thigh area. Let go. Tense the muscles in your buttocks. Let go. Tense the muscles of your stomach. Let go. Tense the muscles in your back. Let go. Tense the muscles in your shoulder. Let go. Relax. Tense the muscles in your neck. Let go. Tense the muscles in your head. Let go. Do a big smile. Let go. Move your neck. Breathe in. You can do is breathe in one rotation. Hold it. And breathe out. Coming back. Again. Breathe in. Hold it. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. As you go through every aspect of your body, in tensing your muscles, what's going to happen is that you're forcing the old oxygen, the old dead cells out of those areas into your bloodstream, and then you're able to expel them. If you keep your eyes closed, don't worry about what I'm doing here on the screen. Just keep your eyes closed, breathe rhythmically, and look at the space between your eyebrows. What do you see there? You see light? You see color? Just keep focusing. What are you thinking about? You thinking that this is relaxing? Or are you wondering what your spouse next to you is doing? Are they actually doing the exercises? Come on, if you're not doing it, you're not going to get the benefit of it. So you need to practice in the comfort of your own home, because in the comfort of your own home and your own comfort zone, what will happen is that then when you're in other areas, whether that be at work, on the train, as a passenger on the bus, passenger in a car, You can do these exercises and no one will really know. So keep breathing. Keep your eyes focused. What are you thinking? Now, let's try to bring your mind to blankness. In other words, look at that area between your eyebrows. The yogis call it a third eye. They call it that because that's your spiritual eye. Keep focused on there. Keep your focus. And now, try to be blank. What do I mean being blank? Well, stop that voice inside of yourself. What is it saying? That voice is where your thoughts are coming from. Watch it. Ask it to quiet. Keep it from coming up. Keep breathing. Keep focused. How long were you able to keep your thoughts down? What are you thinking now? Okay, do another 2 deep breaths. One more. Come gently back up. Open your eyes. A couple points in doing this exercise. In having your posture the way it is, again, you can be laying down. You can do this before you go to sleep at night, which is a great time to do it. Keep your attention centered on your breath. Keep your attention centered on the point between your eyebrows, on that light. Keep your fingers together, because what happens is that it sets up cues for your body. Have you ever seen basketball players, when they're going to shoot a free throw, they dribble, 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 dribble. Every single time, they dribble the same number of times, they hold the ball in the same way, and then they shoot it, swish, right? So what happens is that your body has triggers in it to get it into different moods, to get your consciousness in a certain way. So when you're holding your posture in a certain way, when you're holding your fingers in a certain way, what happens is that the more you do this, the more your body is going to be realizing that you want it to relax, the more that it will relax for you. Okay? So as you do this, again, the more you practice it, then when you're out in a car, you want to relax, you've had a hard day, your spouse is driving or someone else is driving, you can go into yourself and experience the joy of relaxation, the joy of controlling your own thoughts. When you get into a hurried situation, when you're under a deadline, under pressure, when you're with the kids, when you're having an argument or the beginning of an argument, you can come back into your center, take a deep breath, and control your thoughts. In many cases, when we get into situations where we're hurried or where we're under pressure or where we're about to argue, in many cases we do things and say things that we regret later on. Again, what we're talking about is getting control of ourselves, coming inside of ourselves, and thus controlling our life. Okay? We'll be back in just a minute, and we'll talk about what we're going to be doing next week. Jesus said, "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thy eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." So, in focusing our attention on the space between our eyebrows, in that single eye, the third eye of the Tibetans, of the yogis, what happens is that you see light, you see colors, you're able to focus your attention and actually bring a lot more spiritual aspect to your life. It's interesting to note, on the break we were talking about in controlling your thoughts, one of the things that I came up with in doing all of this studying and doing all of this training is the fact that your subconscious mind doesn't picture not. In other words, the word not has no meaning to the subconscious mind. For instance, when I talked about the mind thinking in pictures, when I said the word car, what did you see? Did you see the black letters C-A-R? No, you saw an actual car. Maybe your car or a car that you want to drive. If I said the word house, what do you see? You see the black letters H-O-U-S-E? No, you actually see a picture of the house. Well, if I said to you, do not see Mickey Mouse, do not see Mickey Mouse with green galoshes and yellow shorts on, what do you see? Well, unless you're actually trained in thought control, you actually see Mickey Mouse with green galoshes and yellow shorts on. So again, the word not, N-O-T, has no meaning to the subconscious mind. Well, again, so what? Well, think about it for a minute. If your parents, how do you talk with your kids? When we were children, how did our parents talk to us? How many of us out there heard the words, don't eat so fast? Now, in our young minds, what did we picture? Well, we pictured eating fast. And we reacted from that and ate fast. And what happened? Well, if, for instance, we were playing with the ball in the house and our parents said, don't play with the ball in the house. Has this ever happened to you? Well, your child still plays with it. And you say, I told you not to play with the ball in the house. And you get aggravated at the child because they're not doing what you said they should do. Well, in actuality, what you're doing is you're placing thoughts in their mind, pictures in their mind that they're reacting from. And then by disciplining them, because they're supposedly not doing what you want them to do, what happens is they get confused in their mind. So, what do? Instead of saying not, like in don't play with the ball, what you'd actually do is tell them what you want them to do. For instance, play with the ball outside. In regards to the eating, instead of don't eat so fast, you'd say, I'd like you to eat slowly, chew your food thoroughly, and that will help you be healthier. Okay? If, for instance, a child's running in the pool, I see this happen all the time. Don't run. Well, instead of that, you'd say, when you're around a pool area or when you're around water, you walk. Okay? So that's kind of an interesting sideline to this. Actually, it's interesting to note how the Ten Commandments are written. Because if they were written a little bit differently, maybe we wouldn't be doing some of the things that it tells us not to do. Well, what I'd like to do is actually talk about next week a little bit. In all of the planning that we had for these seminars, the next aspect that we're talking about is to actually take some of the techniques that we've talked about and actually work a little bit further on them. In the first meeting, we talked about how goals and desires make up our life. For instance, what do we want to do in our life? We're not going to get someplace unless we actually know where we want to go. What we really need to do is to take a look at a couple situations. One is the as-is situation. Your as-is situation, where you are now, what your strengths and weaknesses are now, the areas that you'd like to become more effective.